Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Fast and Curious podcast, where we talk about a topic in 15 minutes or less. Today, I'm joined with Grant Medlin, my co-host.
What's up?
And today, we're going to be talking about the famous Chernobyl incident. So you want to start talking to us about what Chernobyl is?
Yes, so Chernobyl is a nuclear power plant located in the city of Pripyat, which is located north of Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. It's in Ukraine, and it's right near the border of Belarus. So when the accident occurred, Ukraine didn't exist. It was part of the Soviet Union. And what happened was the nuclear plant was doing some routine tests, and one of the tests they were trying to see was how well the power plant performed under minimum power. Mm-hmm. So they turned the power down, but not too low, just minimum power. And what happened was something went wrong, and the power shot down to 1%, which was bad. But what happened was the workers, manning the power and all, panicked and quickly turned the power back on. And this caused a giant energy surge to go throughout the entire reactor.
And then exploded.
Yeah, and a 1,000-ton lid got lifted, and radiation spilled and poured out.
Yes, for many miles.
Yeah.
There's a map of where radiation is now, and you can actually see, it's really cool where the wind was going.
Yeah,
because you can see it's
barely any radiation went towards Russia.
Yeah.
It all went into Europe the other way. But one of the interesting things about it is the fact that the Soviet Union tried to cover it up. They didn't say it happened until a couple of days later. Radiation instruments and all that measure radiation in Sweden and countries far away from the Ukraine and Soviet Union picked up minor spikes in radiation, but minor enough to where, it was weird. They shouldn't be spiking, to the point where they asked questions about, they checked the nuclear power plants in the area. None of them had any accidents. The only one that it could have been from was Chernobyl, and that forced the Soviet Union to admit that it had happened.
Yeah. So since then, there has been some TV shows. The one that I know of personally is Top Gear UK. One of the best car shows
the
out
original.
there. The original. They did a challenge because there's still radiation in the area still today. It's very low, but you don't live there.
Yeah, it's enough to where you can't live there, but it's low enough to where you can visit.
Yeah. So what they did was they took 3 low fuel mileage cars from the border of...
They drove across Ukraine.
Yeah, they drove across Ukraine, and the challenge was to run out of gas before you entered Chernobyl borders.
Yeah.
And so they were doing all this kind of stuff, crazy stuff, to try to make their cars
run out of
gas the most. But so you can still visit there. You just can't live there. So when you visit, you'll see a lot of broken down buildings.
It's a very lengthy process to get in, though, because they have to check you. They check you before you go in, give you things to try to prevent you from getting radiation poisoning, all that good stuff. But you don't really visit the reactor where the explosion happened.
Yeah, that's not.
What you do visit, though, is the city of Pripyat, which is where the city was built for the workers and their families who worked at Chernobyl. And they were right in the path of this explosion and the radiation. Mm-hmm. And so the whole city overnight was evacuated. So now it's just a giant abandoned ghost town of a city that nature has reclaimed. Mm-hmm. You'll find wolves, deer, bears, and tons of stray dogs. And to the point where it's actually become a problem. They've had to go in and start spaying and neutering the stray dogs so they stop repopulating and keep overpopulating the area with dogs. Mm-hmm. You have all these cool things that are in the reactor. So one of them is the elephant's foot. And the elephant's foot, it's this giant corrosive pool of just nasty radioactive stuff, just tons of bad things that has melted through to just the bottom floor, and it's one of the most radioactive things on planet Earth. You can't really stand near it for more than 5 minutes. It's bad. Mm-hmm. Some of the pictures taken of them, you can't get too close to it. It resembles, they call it elephant's foot because it resembles an elephant's foot. It's this wrinkly mass, and there's some speculation as if it's gonna melt because there's an underwater spring under the reactor, and they're scared that the elephant's foot is gonna melt through and hit the water down there and dirty the water source and
Yeah.
all, but its slow sinkage has like slowed down in recent years, so they don't know if that's actually going to happen or not.
Yeah. But one thing that they have started to build, I'm pretty sure it is over the reactor right now. It's the dome.
The dome, yes.
Yeah, and it's basically a big metal, huge dome, huge, and they just slid it right over where the reactor exploded, so that no more radiation can get out.
Yeah, they built it next to the reactor and slid it over like train tracks, like they use like tracks to roll it over, and now it's permanently gonna be there. And multiple tons of nations poured like money together to like build it, and it covers not the reactor tower, which is like the famous thing. Whenever you look up a picture of Chernobyl, you always imagine the reactor tower, but it covers the building where like most of the explosion happened. And yeah, it's to prevent any further. It's prevent outside influence like weather destroying the place, and prevent more radiation to getting out in the air.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, this was a very big accident, and a lot of people died during this incident. But I think that basically explains the whole thing of Chernobyl. Do you have anything?
But
last?
Yeah, one of the things that's scary about Chernobyl is they don't know the exact casualty count because they don't know how many people exposed to the radiation later died of diseases caused by that radiation. It's such a hard thing to track and keep count of and all. And I mean, yeah, I think that's about it with Chernobyl.
Yeah, I think it's a very I like things like this. It's kind of cool, but it's also kind of sad at the same time. But,
yeah, and it's also kind of creepy too.
It is.
There's been horror movies made about it as well, and a lot of people say that when you go to Pripyat, it almost looks like a horror themed theme park. Like
it does, because it's got like you can see like pictures of like the playgrounds.
Yeah, and the
It's just
Ferris wheel and all
that. But yeah, that's been another episode of Fast and Curious Podcast. Hope you enjoyed. It's been Zach.
It's been Grant.
And we'll see you guys here in the next one. Thanks.